Hello and welcome to Tech Talk with me, Pranjal Sharma. Today I'm going to be in conversation with Sunil Mathur, who is the MD and CEO of Siemens India. Sunil, thank you for taking time today.
Good to be here, Pranjal.
Sunil, Siemens is a household name pretty much in India, with more than 160 years of presence. Can you tell us that what are the new sectors that Siemens has expanded in recently? Of course, we know that you have a strong role to play in the railway sector, but what are the areas that you span across today?
Well, essentially, Pranjal, we are in three areas. It's not only the railways, but it's also the metros. And we do the electrification and signaling for both the main line as well as the metros. We are also in industrial manufacturing. So, in the entire industrial space, um, in simple terms, Industry 4.0, how can you get industries to be more efficient in their manufacturing? And also use less resources and be more sustainable. And the third part of it is the infrastructure, which is linked in a way, which is energy efficiency. Energy efficiency in buildings, energy efficiency in malls, stadiums, but also in factories, also in the workplace. So, commercial buildings, residential buildings. So those are the major areas that we are operating in right now.
Are there sectors which you have a stronger presence in India than in other parts of the world? Are there something which is unique to India in terms of the solutions you offer?
So I think the businesses that we have are globally present. We are a complete mirror image, Pranjal, of the parent company. So we've even got Siemens Financial Services in India. We also have in India the shared services, global business services here, where we are doing work for global in terms of shared services. We also have about 10,000 software people. Not any bit of equipment around the world is delivered without some signature of Siemens India on it in terms of the software as well. So, a lot of what we are doing, but all of that is also partly adapted to the Indian requirement. We went through 2 or 3 phases. We first took the technology, adopted the technology from Germany, and sold it in India. And then we began to realize, you can't really take a German product and sell it in India. So then we said, okay, then let's manufacture it in India. And that was stage two. And then the stage three was we began to realize, even if we manufacture it in India, it's still not really meeting the Indian requirements, which are very nuanced and very specific. And that's when we went into stage three, which is then turn around and say, okay, how can we take a German product and adapt it to the Indian market, keeping the functionalities that are actually there? So there's a lot of adaptation that we are doing across all the fields that I've spoken about.
And there's also what I've learned and read is that you're also innovating in India, not just for India, but also for the world. And these, as you mentioned earlier, that in software, but perhaps in the hybrid space where software and hardware come together.
Absolutely, absolutely. The entire IoT space, a lot of it is being done here. A lot of programs are being written in terms of simulation. How do you combine, that's the entire part of IoT. How do you combine the virtual and the real, but not only do it in an IT space, but actually start simulating physics, right? So using physics in your simulations to see how can you really create an impact for the customer, not only taking an existing system, but also adapting it with physics-based technologies.
Any example of that comes to mind?
Well, the simple one would be, you have in automotive manufacturing, for example, you have this wind tunnel tests that are done. It's a very expensive part of the manufacturing process where you put the car into a wind tunnel and see, at what speed of wind does your windscreen screen crack. It's a very high capex environment. Every car had to go through it. And now you can actually simulate that entire process, right? So you can And once you have simulated, you can actually design the windscreen in such a way that they're all the same and you don't have to test every single one. So the things like that you can actually bring in, that bring a huge value for the customer, uh, but also give you the flexibility, give you the speed, give you productivity, all of that put together.
And that's why you talk about IT and OT, which is information technology and operational technology.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the information technology is more about the process, and the operational technology is more about the manufacturing, the actual manufacturing machines, and how do you, at some point in time, they intersect. And you when you go to a noodle manufacturer, and he turns around and he says, "Can you reduce wastage in my noodle plant?"
Mm.
That's a very different conversation from, "Can you automate my plant?" or "Can you whatever." And when you start looking at the process of manufacturing noodles, for example, you realize it's not only the machines and the actual manufacturing on the shop floor, but it's the entire process. And both of them need to be talking and need to be in sync with each other to ensure that the wastage requirements are, or that the wastage is minimized over there. So there are a lot of things like that where the IT world and the OT world are coming very closely together and are actually intersecting.
There is a very strong sense of focusing on perhaps reviving manufacturing in India in the last few years. You know, from toy industry to the pharmaceutical APIs. Uh, do you see that impacting the demand for your solutions as well? I mean, how do you, at a macro level, how do you see this revival and investment in manufacturing in India?
I think India is in a great sweet spot, Pranjal. We are the software center of the world. We aspire to be the manufacturing hub of the world. The government has a clear objective: raise manufacturing 15% of GDP to 25% of GDP. If you do the math, you're looking at $1.5 trillion of capex coming into the system, just taking 7% growth rates in the next couple of years. Now, $1.5 trillion is a hell of a lot of capex, and I don't think there are too many countries around the world that are looking at that scale. So, what exactly is it actually going to mean? It's going to mean greater efficiencies. It's going to mean not only a couple of companies bringing in manufacturing, but it's going to mean the entire ecosystem that feeds into these companies are also needing to adopt all of this. And I think we've got some very good examples already in the country. The speed of adoption of Industry 4.0, for example, is increasing. More importantly, the necessity is increasing. And you see a real business case. A businessman will not invest because they see a cool thing. They will only invest if they see a business case coming out of it. And there are real business cases. And we have a business case in our own company. You know, the classical idea was this is only for the big boys. Um, and that's not true. We have a factory here, 50 years old factory. We manufacture contactors over there, 80 variants of contactors. And the competition had more variants. And every time we wanted to manufacture, you needed an additional production line. So we had 80 variants on 3 production lines, and then we applied IoT. And we went from 80 variants to 180 variants, 80 variants on 3 production lines to 180 on 1. 13 quality checks to 52, 21 seconds down to 9 seconds of production time. You look at the benefit that something like that has. There's a business case intrinsic in that model. There's a return on investment that is intrinsic on that model. And this is in a 50-year-old plant using old machines, right? Now, all of a sudden, you say there are millions of small and medium enterprises in the country who are strapped for cash, who are strapped for capex, who want to do more, but can't because of the resource constraints that they have. This is where Industry 4.0 comes in. It helps them to do more with less.
So smart technology, but also affordable technology.
Smart technology, is could actually be affordable technology and is also greener technology, right? Because you are using less resources, right? Therefore, your emission levels go down, your footprint, carbon footprint goes down, and this becomes even more attractive for customers abroad who want to buy products but want to buy increasingly the demand is for greener products.
You gave that very brilliant example of connectors on making variants on the same line. And that's been my focus in recent times also, the agility in manufacturing. And that's coming through because the consumer today, and if you look at the new generation of consumers coming in, they want what is called mass customization. Every product needs to be made for themselves. So across categories, there is this need for all manufacturers to be able to pivot quickly for changing market needs. Is that creating and triggering a new demand for technology?
Absolutely. I mean, it's mass customization is one part of it, but it's also you need the flexibility, right? Demand is going up and down. There are so many variants in the ecosystem that a businessman has to deal with. Demand supply variants are a major part of that. And therefore, it's not only manufacturing, the ability to manufacture different products without stopping the production line, but also to be able to adjust your capacities to suit the supply and demand. And I think this is becoming an increasing reality of today's world.
And you see
And
this across various
and this
sectors?
is coming across in most sectors, some larger than others. What is also coming across, particularly, for example, in the pharma industry, is the quality of manufacturing of the drugs, right? There are FDA requirements that need to be met. The quality has got to be reached over there. You need efficiencies as well. And those are the kind of areas where you can't get things 99% right. You've got to be 100% right. And that's where technology plays a huge role and the adoption of technology. But for this sort of thing, you need deep process knowledge. And that is what we have. We were electrical manufacturers, then we moved to automation manufacturers. Now we are moving into the technology space using the know-how that we have built up over 160 years in this space.
Interesting development you mentioned was about the accelerator. Why is that required in India today?
So I think it's the idea of accelerator is because customers are changing globally and especially in India as well. Originally, buyers or sellers were waiting for the customer to define what they wanted. You tell me what product you want and I will deliver it to me. You specify the specs. You tell us exactly what you want and I'll make it to suit your requirement. And if I make it cheapest and I do it in the shortest possible time, then I get the order. The narrative is changing exactly on the lines that we spoke earlier. Customers are now turning around and saying, hey, how can you solve some of the problems that we have? Can you help reduce wastage? Can you help bring in energy efficiency? Right? And you look at a cement plant, for example, 40% of the cost of manufacturing cement is energy cost. The cost of a bag of cement, 1 kilo of cement, is half the price of the cost of 1 kilo of old newspapers, right? And if 40% of that is energy, any saving you bring in energy, not only out of the sustainability initiatives, but just economically makes sense for them. And this is where technology comes in. The same thing in buildings, right? You have energy costs in hotels, in hospitals, in commercial complexes is huge. Any efficiency you can bring out over there with the technologies that are available first enables a very strong sustainability story. Second, it makes business sense.
How will the Siemens accelerator work? I mean,
And
what
the
is the starting point?
Siemens Accelerator, Pranjal, starts basically with this conversation. Tell us what is the biggest challenge that
So
you
they do
have.
the solutioning or create
So
the answer.
we start with that, and then we say, hey, we have worked on something of this sort in another part of the world, right? And this is what we've done in another part of the world. So you can actually go yourself onto the platform, and you can see use cases of what has happened in other parts of the world. And then you can turn around and say, I'd like to buy that product. And then you can click and you can see all the products that Siemens can offer you in that area. Or you may turn around and say, I want that use case, and it's product, but it's also solutions. And then we show over there a list of partners who have worked with us all over the world to put those use cases together. So then you can actually go out as a buyer and say, I'll curate my own solution. I'll buy some products from here, maybe not. I know what the use case is that Siemens has done in other parts of the world, and I know who they have partnered with. So maybe I curate my own solution. Alternatively, I get Siemens in to help us curate that based on the experience that they've done overall. And the beauty of it is this is available with a couple of clicks first on the platform, right? And then you are able to take this. And where does this lead? This story actually move out to? For a buyer, it's the most comfortable way of resolving the problem, is to see whether I don't need to reinvent the wheel. Let me first see what's going on in other parts of the world, right? And then
And
let
there's
me
a
see.
sense of comfort that it has been
Absolutely.
done. There might be some variances, but the fact is it has been done and there is some relatability to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So here, you refer to the smaller companies, and we hear a lot that technology for large companies, as you said, is there. But how does a small manufacturer, adopt technology? And the version and the vision is that there'll be a lot of robots running around the large plants and the small plants. But we're not quite there.
That's a pretty scary vision, right?
True. So, what is then the way that the mid-level manufacturer, who is part of a larger vendor ecosystem, how does that entrepreneur embrace technology? There is excitement, but there's also anxiety.
You're absolutely right. And I think it's going to be a pull and a push effect. Um, I cannot be a completely digital manufacturing company unless my supply chain is part of that process and is integrated into my manufacturing activities. So that means I'm going to have to start working with my suppliers to define to them what I actually need, how bring them into my integrated process over here, and also work with them to start adopting some of these technologies. The flip side is the supplier has got to now be open to turn around and say, okay, I'm ready to adopt this. Again, it's not a must. It has to make business sense for the supplier. But the supplier needs to be open-minded enough to turn around and say, let me try, let me see what happens. And I don't have to turn my entire manufacturing setup on its head overnight. We can do it in stages, right? And you do one part of the manufacturing process, take a proof of concept, then move to the next, and so on. And slowly you begin to gain the confidence that this is something that will make a huge difference to your own business, but also open up a huge new bouquet of opportunities out there.
For the next 5 years, Sunil, you've been leading the company for several years now. What are the sectors that will drive growth and your aspiration for the company? You mentioned mobility, which is across categories. Is that going to be your key, or do you see other sectors also contributing to Siemens' growth in India?
So actually, I think we're firing on all engines here, right? The government is talking about energy for all, energy transition, green energy. We are in the energy space. We are in energy transition space, right? The government is talking about increasing the share of manufacturing. We are in the manufacturing space. The government is talking about modernizing the railways, reducing logistic costs. We are in the mobility space. So I think we cover all the objectives over there. I think the opportunities for all of this is something that we can definitely participate in. The railways is doing a tremendous job in not only passenger trains through the Vande Bharats and the Vande Metros and so on, but also on cargo, locomotives and bogies and all that. So there's a lot happening over there. Every city in India is going to need a metro, right? At some point in time, and not only one line, multiple lines. That's an opportunity. As private sector capex kicks in, which it has to with the growth in GDP, we are currently at around 75, 77% capacity utilizations. I expect that to increase in the next coming years. And as that increases, digitalization and smart manufacturing is going to be a critical need to be competitive, not only in the country, but also to be competitive internationally. And then finally, the entire energy transition and energy efficiency elements. Data centers are going to increase, semiconductors are coming in, batteries are coming in. All of this requires technology and is all part of the energy transition process. You'll need smart grids. You'll need, as more and more green energy comes onto the grid, you will need the grids to be able to take that fluctuations over there. We are in all that space. So I see actually that we are actually in a sweet spot here. We've been in the country 160 years.
For the hardware that you manufacture, how much of enhanced localization do you see?
Substantial. We are already 32 factories in the country. So we are actually substantially localized already in the country. We are also fast adapters of localization. Our locomotive that we recently got an order for, first time in India, with the technology that is there, a 9,000 horsepower locomotive. For the first time, we will be able to bring it up to around 90% localization, right? So Indians are fast adopters and adapters. And I think that is the advantage that we have. And that's what we in Siemens are continuing to do. We've done it over the years. We know how to do it, and we will continue to do it.
Final thought from you, Sunil. We are in very interesting, geoeconomic and geopolitical times, and this seems to be, from all available indicators, a very interesting time for India to be, raising its head globally as an economic leader. From Europe, from the headquarters of Siemens and from Germany, how has the role and the perception of India changed, and how do you see that shifting in the next few years?
I think the perception of India has changed substantially, and not only in Siemens, but especially in Siemens, but also for many global companies. India was viewed for many years as being a country that is a country of opportunities, has opportunities, will always have opportunities. Very few of those opportunities actually got converted. This changed in the last 5 to 7 years, right? And we have seen real proof points on the ground of movement happening on the ground. I mean, look at the roads and highways that are being built over here. Look at the speed that is being done. India is now 98%, the rail network is 98%, almost 100% by this year, electrified. 64,000 kilometers have been electrified in the last 7 years. Let's put that in context. That's equivalent to the entire rail network of Germany that we've been able to do in 7 years. We in Siemens got a large contract, 26,000 crores for locomotives. From the date of tendering to the date of award, 9 months. Never has it been done before. Forget in India, it's never been done globally as well, an order of this magnitude. So I think these are proof points that give a lot of credibility to India, in addition to the terrific geopolitical sweet spot that we find ourselves in right now. in terms of political stability, but also the fact that India is now actually delivering, right? There are concrete proof points. I hope we continue that momentum and continue to deliver concrete proof points. And the global board of Siemens is hugely supportive, hugely interested, and is pushing to do more here in the country.
Sunil, thank you so much. And on this positive note, let's end the conversation. I'm delighted that Siemens continues to be so deeply invested in partnering for India's growth. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Pranjal.